and Derby delight for Sydney FC as another gold nugget rolls off the production line. Wanderers star Sophie Harding is our special guest tonight. Western take their premiership march to the next level on a day to remember for Hannah Keane. And a Matildas star breathes life into the Roars campaign as Melbourne City's winless run continues. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone. I'm Niav Owens. Awesome to have your company a little bit later on this Sunday evening, and that is because this man, Pellizzeri, has just been calling the young Matildas clash with Korea Public. Teo, you've made it back from Tashkent in time. We appreciate that so much. Can we start with why on earth that game went ahead in those atrocious conditions?
Because the young Matildas and Australian teams in general will play anytime, anywhere, and they showed amazing spirit, desire and character here to come from behind to win 2-1. First group game of 3, and they are in a great position now to get out of their group and go to an Under-20 World Cup in a much warmer country, Colombia.
Thank goodness, because they were ankle deep in snow right through the middle of that pitch. It was a case of stick to the edges, cross it in at the last minute as much as possible, and remarkable that the Aussies managed to get something out of this game.
Yeah, perfect for Australia. It was about desire. It was about the willingness to win a 50-50 or a tough header and to keep your composure. And that's exactly what they did, and they deserved to win.
You kept your composure as well, Teo Pellizzeri, which we appreciate so much, as did you, Grace Gill. Lovely to see you on a weekend where we saw for the first time in A-League women's history, and indeed across women's sport in Australia, an all-female commentary team across every game of the A-League women's. It was remarkable. How special an occasion is that to be a part of, and how proud should our game be that that has just happened?
Well, huge, a historic moment. Our league has been around for 16 years now, so for it to take that long to have the first ever all-women callers, co-callers across the weekend was fantastic, and largely driven by producers, directors who are willing to support women in the game. So really, really pleased to be a part of it, but it's a watershed moment in our sport for sure.
Very special moment, and very special, Sophie Harding, to have you back on the panel with us. So good to see you again. Fresh from Matilda's squad, no less. Can we start with that? Because last time I saw you, Soph, you were doing the victory lap of Marvel Stadium in that shirt that says qualified, qualified, qualified. How special an occasion was that in front of that incredible fan base?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It was an amazing experience. Obviously, I think being out there in front of 55,000 fans, even though I wasn't playing, was an amazing thing, and it just made me extremely motivated to keep pushing and hopefully make that squad.
Let's talk about your experience in that squad, because you got the call up on the eve of going away. Firstly, did that help with the nerves a little bit? And what did you learn from the players around you, that training experience that you had over the course of that week?
Yeah, I think it did help with my nerves a little bit because I was pretty much just rushing to get everything organised so that I could make my flight. But yeah, it was super cool to go in there and sort of see where I'm at, where the benchmark is. Everyone was extremely technical and extremely talented, obviously. So it was amazing to be amongst it and finally get that chance to be at that level.
So in terms of the step up from the A-League to the national team, we obviously know that the conditions around the national team are incredible now. You travel business class, you've got so many resources around you. Can you give us an insight into what that was like going from the A-League and how much of a step up it actually was?
Yeah, for me, who's someone yet to go overseas and play at different levels, different clubs, I think for me stepping up from the A-League and seeing the amount of resources the Matildas do have, it shows why they're also professional and where they are, because it was extremely good environment to be in. You had everything you needed, didn't really have to stress much about anything really, so that's why I think that they play so well and feel comfortable.
I love that your first overseas trip was business class to begin with. Keep that tradition going for as long as possible. What was that international travel like? And I guess most specifically, coming back to Australia with the short turnaround time in Melbourne, how did you find the jet lag?
Yeah, of course, flying business does help. It's very cool and you're very comfortable. But yeah, for me, a new player who's not really used to the travel, I think I did struggle a little bit. I was extremely tired. My head was a bit all over the shop. But yeah, I think the other players are a bit more used to it than I was, so yeah.
In a sense, without Sam Kerr there due to her injury, it's maybe not what the typical Matildas experience has been for so many players over the last couple of years. What was it like reporting into Captain Catley leading the team?
Oh, Steph's extremely nice. She's exactly as she appears to be. She's very supportive and encouraging and makes you feel extremely comfortable, so that was good.
Let's move on to the Sydney Derby. We've delayed it for as long as we can, so we're going to dive in. From a crowd perspective to begin with, because we were talking in the lead-up about the potential for this to be the biggest crowd in Women's A-League history, certainly in Western Sydney Wanderers history. They got there in the end, but it took them time to find their way into CommBank Stadium. Did you feel that excitement building as the game went on? Because I'm sure you would have loved it a little bit earlier when you really needed them.
Yeah, I think throughout the week, all the girls were extremely excited. We knew it was a home derby, double-header, so we thought that there was going to be an extremely good atmosphere going into it. I definitely think that it did progress as the game went on. I think even after the game finished and I went back out onto the field, the atmosphere was electric. Definitely would have been good having that a bit more during our game, but yeah, it's still growing and you just got to be grateful for the fans that did come.
Teo, Sydney started slowly in this game, but we saw that ability that they have to switch the point of attack, to target Courtney Vine and her pace, and in the end, it absolutely paid off.
It did, and early doors, Princess Abini had the better of the chances as the half went on. Second half, this was, well, a hotly debated penalty. For me, I do think it's a penalty kick. Kaylee Talon-Henneke coming on to make her debut, winning that spot kick, and Mackenzie Hawkesby put it away. And then Grace Gill, perhaps the most hotly debated moment of the entire match, the red card for Vicky Bruce. Not that Wanderers didn't stop creating after this red card, but given it was career game number 100 for Casey Rybelt, is this one she'd love back on that milestone occasion?
Yeah, look, I think it's a pretty stiff call on Vicky Bruce. In my mind, there's still a second defender there to come across and cover, and I think the Wanderers in that case are really hard done by.
What a hotbed of talent Wollongong is, by the way. Another South Coast junior, Kaylee Talon-Henneke, coming on and scoring that goal. Debuting at 18, so, you know, not so much, you know, in the deep end at 15 or 16 like Janea Dos Santos last season, but still a great goal. And Sydney FC, yeah, they do it again. They keep another clean sheet in the derby. It goes back to 2019. So they just had the answers in this game.
Yeah, and I think there were some questions around how they'd cope with their young Matildas away. 6 young Matildas in the side. So they were lacking, and that's when Talon-Henneke comes on, freshly 18 as well, so just sort of a few days into her 19th year, 45 minutes, 1 goal. And in terms of an introduction into the A-League, you really can't ask for a much better intro.
Sydney FC, so compact defensively. How hard are they to break down?
Yeah, it was definitely something we said after the game. They were extremely hard to break down. It feels like they always have a lot of players everywhere. But they're very well disciplined and, yeah, the better team on the day.
Amy Harrison's the only player in that Wanderers team to have actually scored a goal against Sydney FC. Is this something that the group actually addressed? It's time to score? Or was it something that you tried to put out of your minds and maybe natural game instead?
No, don't like to think about it too much. Nah. We obviously do know that they're a hard team to break down and they do have a lot of clean sheets, good goalkeeper. Yeah, it's something that we think about, but it's hard.
I looked at this game, Soph, and I saw it as a change in formation defensively, that you were dropping into a back 4 when you didn't have the ball in this game, obviously different when you had it. Was that recognition of Courtney Vine and the pace, the threat that she poses in attack?
Yeah, of course. We know that Sydney FC are very dangerous in attack, particularly Courtney. She's extremely quick. I think they had to be a little bit more conservative at times, given her ability. Yeah, but going forward, I think we tried to play similar, but our backs were pinned back a bit more.
How important is Vicky Bruce to your team? Because regardless of what happens with the potential to try and appeal the red card, potential for subsequent suspension, she scores goals from attacking set pieces. She's one of your best aerial players anywhere on the pitch. What does she bring to the team and what do you lose if she's not there?
Yeah, she's instrumental in our back 3 for sure. She's extremely aggressive. She wins her duels and she leads through her actions and her voice as well. So it will be bad if we have to miss her, but hopefully overturned.
Can we throw it back to happier times right at the start of the game? And can you tell us what exactly was happening in this moment? We know you're competitive in everything you do. What's this about?
That's me and Danica, one of my best friends. I have a superstition that I like to lead the line in the warm-up, and she thinks I'm terrible at leading the line up in the warm-up, thinks I don't do the right exercises, so we're having a little argument there. But you can see I win. Not competitive at all.
No, but just to be clear, that was definitely a victory. Let's have a look at Canberra United's clash with Western United, Teo, because Western dominated this game from go to woe, and we saw that combination that exists between Chloe Lagazzo and Hannah Keane further flourish. This was a night Hannah Keane will remember.
She will, and a fantastic performance. Western should have dominated this. Chloe Lincoln and Sasha Grove away on international duty. Michelle Heyman and also Vesna Milivojevic coming back from international duty for a 4:30 p.m. kickoff on the Friday. I know City Vista's tough to book, but, I mean, if this was literally the only venue and time they could get it ground, Canberra should feel a little bit hard done by. With that said, Hannah Keane, we've been waiting for this moment where she bullies a defence, where she is imperious in the air, where she's two-footed on the ground. Grace, she had it all in this game and rewarded with a hat-trick subsequently.
Yeah, it was a great performance from Hannah, and I think we saw a relatively slow start to the year from Hannah Keane, and as well, wasn't just in the goal-scoring form, she also started the season out a little wider, and Chloe was in the middle. And in recent times, Kat Smith has moved to a 2 9s at the top, and that combination between the two is working so well, but it's really working to Hannah's strengths as well.
Let's not forget, most players Hannah Keane's age, having been semi-pro or occasionally pro, travelling around the world, Europe, United States, Australia, generally, you know, Hannah Keane's a fitness freak, and that's why her body has been able to hold up to play at this level to that age. Most players not in a full-time environment wouldn't even make it to Hannah Keane's age. With that said, what do you see when you see Hannah Keane out there as a fellow forward yourself?
Oh, she looks extremely confident. She looks like she's enjoying herself. And I think for strikers, the main thing is confidence. Once you get a few goals, she's got momentum and she looks like she's having fun.
Gigi mentioned the shift positionally between Chloe Lagazzo and Hannah Keane that we've seen under Kat Smith. What have you made of that, and indeed that understanding, that partnership that exists between those two players, because they've clicked?
Yeah, as a striker, there's nothing better than when you have a midfielder to play you good service. I think when you have a good understanding with a player, it definitely helps a lot, and they clearly have that, and it seems to be working.
Do you look at the way Keane uses her body as well, both in the air, back to goal, and the physicality she has, especially at full speed as well? Do you see traits in your game that you are developing that are similar to hers? You know, as someone who's won the Golden Boot in this league and is now making a late charge for it again?
Yeah, she has a really good physical presence. I think that her height, her strength helps her a lot to hold the ball up and push off players, so that's definitely something really good.
I think the last thing I'd note as well about that partnership or combination between Lagazzo and Keane is that there was always going to be a bit of a question mark about Chloe coming back into Western United, having had a tough international window. She didn't see the field with the Matildas, so I think that's a huge credit to her and her mental fortitude to come in, have a good performance, step up, take a penalty, because no doubt she would have loved to get on the field for the Matildas, so I think that's a massive props to Chloe.
We know, Gigi, that Western have had a consistent starting 11 throughout this season, but they've brought in a new goalkeeper, Christine Larson, Danish international, to replace Hilary Beale. She looks like such a quality signing.
Yeah, it's a brilliant replacement for Hilary Beale, and to be honest, they had to find someone. It was going to be, again, a bit of a question mark around Western United's future in this season without Beale, because she was the goalkeeper of the year last year. We know that at her very best, she wins games for the team. So for Larson to come in and to see the quality we've seen from her early doors, I think that's really smart recruitment.
We saw a big difference, Teo, when Michelle Heyman and Vesna Milivojevic did come on in the second half. Gee whiz, they missed them in the first 45. They're quality players introduced late.
Yeah, and they're also a veteran presence there. And with key players, young players, Grove and Lincoln away, they really needed that leadership. This is a superb goal, albeit right at the end of the game. Got to say, Devon Jackson's goal as well for Canberra was a really good strike. So they actually, you know, uncorked 2 pretty amazing goals, but they must look back. You know, so many games are won and lost in the first 20 minutes due to conceding an early goal, due to a giveaway that leads to a goal. And that's what Canberra really suffered from, having to chase for so much of this game. They wouldn't be totally discouraged about the way that they played this game out.
Well, interesting approach too, having both Heyman and Milivojevic on the bench. We know Heyman came on the field in the first game over in Tashkent and then started the second game, played 45 minutes. So not too much football in her legs, managing her load. Milivojevic, on the other hand, came in having played 2 full games for Serbia, so 180 minutes of football in the last sort of 7 days. So you can maybe understand the Vesna move a little more so than the Heyman move, but most certainly when those two came on, there was a stark difference.
Let's talk then than Tilly's, because you were there in Tashkent for the opening game, you were there in Melbourne for the second one, Grace, and Michelle Heyman, such an extraordinary reintroduction to this side, celebrated so widely within the football community. 5 goals in 2 games. We know the squad's going from 23 back to 18. Has Michelle Heyman just done everything she can to stamp her own ticket to Paris?
To be honest, I don't think there's much more she could have done to do exactly that. Her performance, obviously finishing 5 goals in 2 games, is extraordinary. Her fitness, her speed, she hasn't lost any pace. 35 years young, but she's been a really key part that I think has knitted the forward line of the Matildas together really, really well. Yes, there may be a question mark over against better opposition, with all respect to Uzbekistan, but I think Heyman is in fantastic form, both for Canberra, and now we've seen her back in the Matildas, and look, I think she's got one foot on the plane.
Sophie, what's she like in camp? Because you can see that this is a player who is loving her football, so appreciates the opportunity to be back on the international stage. Off camera, is she just as joyous as what we see?
Yeah, she's actually an extremely nice, energetic, happy person, and it shows when she's on the field. Like, I think every time the screen zoomed up on her, she had the biggest smile on her face, so it's good to see her doing so well and enjoying herself.
Heaps to celebrate for Caitlin Torpey as well, Teo. She was operating throughout these 2 games in different positions. I think we were all pretty shocked to see her push forward in game 1, but she showed that she can offer this side some real versatility.
And with so much talk about the small size of the Olympic squad, versatility is such an asset. And Caitlin Torpey, we know that at the end of her time at the Brisbane Roar and at a lower standard at NPL level, she's been used as either a right winger or even a centre forward. And I guess if you can shoot, you can be trusted to play in that area of the field. The great advantage of Caitlin Torpey is, as a perhaps instinctive natural defender, she knows how to track back. She knows how to be accountable. And really, I think the question over Torpey coming into these games was, did she have the aerobic capacity to keep up with the pace and intensity of not just the games, but the repetition of the training sessions into the games, into the travel, into the training, into the games. It's that cumulative effect of all of it that comes with international football. And the performance at Marvel Stadium spoke for itself.
So who are you looking at then, Teo? Because we all know that you'll have a spreadsheet and you'll have already inputted, I reckon, 18 names into it. Who's coming in and out?
I have 17 on it because I'm not totally sure about where Courtney Vine is at, where Amy Sayer is at, and then the wild cards. And Emily Gilnick and Alex Chidiac, they are further back. I think the team that, you know, won these games, won their spot through to the Olympics. I have 13, 14 of them on the plane. And let's not forget, you can take 4 alternates as well. So, yes, it's only 18 that get on the field, but you've got the 4 alternates there as well to dangle as carrots. And so, at the moment, I'm pretty close to trying to guess what they'll do. But let's not forget, we've got this window with Mexico and another friendly, which I would hate to spoil by giving it away. So,
please go right ahead.
No. Well, we have 2 more games, I believe, coming up relatively soon. And A-League women's form, as has been documented by this window, could yet have a profound effect on who gets one last chance to make a go at it.
Let's talk about that A-League women's form then, Soph. What learnings have you taken from your time with the squad, and what goals are you setting yourself in order to give yourself the best chance of going to Paris?
Yeah, I think that it was definitely a level up in intensity and technical ability. For me, definitely the speed of play was a big adjustment. I think that I just need to keep working on the little things. I think that my speed and power is obviously an attribute that I'm very happy with, but more my touches and understanding the speed of the game more will definitely help me to put my best foot forward. It's
something we discussed when you were last here. How much of an advantage is it that you've got this opportunity at 24 with a bit of introspection, with a bit of appreciation for your journey to this point, that it's not just a young player being given instruction, it's someone who can self-analyse and say, this is what they've told me to work on, this is what I'm going to work on, this is the meeting of the 2 of them.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that at my age I do have the emotional maturity to deal with the feedback, the setbacks, the not playing, like seeing it as a positive experience and using it as a learning experience to hopefully get there again. I don't know if I would have had that when I was 17, 18, so I'm definitely grateful that I have that now.
Let's have a look at a whole host of Matildas now, playing at the home of Matildas, up against Wellington this weekend. 8 goals in this one, Grace, so a whole heap to break down. But can we please start with Beattie Goad, who I appreciate so much as a human as well as a footballer. She's just had 6 weeks off football to focus on her medical exams, no less, and she, in her first game back, had a big impact on this game.
Well, it was a great reintroduction for Beattie Goad, and I think even more importantly so that Mackenzie Wynett has since departed the squad. But Beattie Goad, you've mentioned it there, 6 weeks away doing her final exams to become a doctor, just as a backup plan in means of a great footballer. But this is the victory that I think we expected to see at the start of the season. When you look at the team on paper, from day dot, everyone went, well, this is a team packed with Matildas. How many Matildas appearances are on this field? And finally, we're starting to see the players hit their stride, combinations start to work. And in the first half of the season, that just wasn't coming together, and it was falling short by all means, Teo.
And this was a continuation with seemingly no break to the momentum of the international break and losing Mackenzie Wynett. And Sophie, not to go over unfortunate results for your team, but what did you see today? Was it simply a continuation of the spark that was lit, unfortunately, for your Wanderers in the game where you played them at home with the Matildas?
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, like you said, we were like, oh my God, this team is stacked. They're going to do extremely well. But then they kind of went quiet and we were like, oh, maybe they're not going to gel. But this game against us and the game today, it's definitely showing that they're forced to be reckoned with.
I mean, are we sure what sort of medical degree Beattie Goad was doing? I mean, to return that sharp, are we sure it wasn't just entirely personal sports science?
There's definitely physical element, that is for sure, because she was immense. What about the Knicks? Because defensively, Teo, they had some serious issues in this game and almost didn't learn from goals that had been scored previously. They weren't able to reform in the game to really hit back.
This will be a really tough video review for them because there's almost a carbon copy goal, Grace, on how they concede from 2 of the corners. We've spoken ad nauseum about their record away from home, the challenges of travel. That's probably something now they're only going to be able to fix in the off-season. But in terms of how you set up at set pieces and how you defend, what is actually top of Paul Temple's priority list when he gets this team back on the training track?
Well, the really frustrating part about those moments is that as a team, and as you know, so if you look at these moments and you go, well, that's easily preventable because we know it was from a set piece, we know how to learn from that and adjust for the next time. The fact that the same thing happened nearly 2 times in a row, that will be incredibly frustrating for Paul Temple. And not only defensively, but just at the other end of things. It's not a case of Wellington not having their chances today. They had the same number of shots on target as Melbourne Victory. So we're now looking at how clinical they are in these final moments.
Well, if Tori Hansen didn't have peroxide hair and Beattie Goad didn't have red hair, you would have thought it was literally the same goal. It's the only way you can tell the two of them apart.
Yeah, I hope you said that on commentary.
6 wins in a row for Victory. They'll look at the goals they conceded late, though, Teo, and rue them a little bit. There was a late flurry from the Phoenix.
Yeah, and I guess the Phoenix, this shows heart, this shows buy-in. They didn't drop their bundle. At half-time, Wellington Phoenix's record defeat in this league is 5-0. Victory's record win is 7-0. Both were on the table. Phoenix said, not today. We're going to play with pride in the shirt. We're going to fight it out. So plenty of evidence that they care, that they're bought in. And the fact that the final margin wasn't actually that big, it's more the way they conceded the goals and the hole they fell into, more so than the actual final result.
So Victory victorious. Their cross-town team, though, Melbourne City, struggling a bit of late, GG, this time up against Brisbane Roar. And Tamika Yallop, who we look at as such a key, versatile player for the Matildas, she was head and shoulders above the rest of the pack in this game.
Yeah, she was. And I think what we're starting to see with some of these key Matildas across the league, and I'd mentioned that about Chidiac as well for Victory, but definitely Tamika Yallop for Brisbane Roar is finally starting to hit her stride and really pull the strings in the middle of the park for this Brisbane team. We know what she does in the national team and she's used as a utility. She's versatile. She's got a different responsibility with Brisbane. She's got to pull the younger girls up to her level. She's got to lead the charge. She's got to be the one being the architect behind everything for Brisbane. And I think what we saw from Yallop today was exactly that role.
We know that Brisbane Roar have been struggling to find results, even though some of the performances have suggested that they weren't a million miles away. It just clicked for them. And the thing for me is Melbourne City, yes, had a heap of chances to take the lead in this game, but I think Brisbane would have overrun them regardless. I guess it's a lot harder to overrun a team when they lead 1-0 or 2-0 if they'd taken those early chances. But for me, Brisbane were always winning this game because they were running on top of the ground at the end of the game. And they did move this kick-off back due to the heat. That's Brisbane's home ground advantage. But they used it to full effect.
You mentioned the fact that they had opportunities. So City hit the woodwork 4 times in this game. Is that a real issue that we need to talk about, or are they just times when it will not drop for you?
Yeah, we always have those games where nothing seems to go right for you. Some really good opportunities there, and it looks like they were playing with confidence. It just didn't seem to go their way.
And that's the trouble, isn't it? Because they're still conceding goals, which traditionally they do with the style of football they play. In the past, Grace, that hasn't been a problem because they always score more. But the goals just aren't dropping for them at the moment.
No, exactly right. But when you look at the quality they still have on the park, with the exception of Daniela Gallett, she's away at the moment, of course, with the young Matildas, but Ekic, Pollicina, Rebecca Stott at the back, and the new signing Barbara in goal as well. These are fantastic players, so they are falling a little bit short on expectation.
We have to mention Barbara, 5-time World Cup player. What a signing from Melbourne City. I almost couldn't believe it when this dropped this week.
Sensational for the league, and anyone with a long memory will recall the 2016 Olympics when Barbara did save 2 penalties to knock the Matildas out of the Rio Olympics. And some of us still aren't over it, Grace. So, look, hey, it's awesome for Melbourne City, but I think it's also, you know, great for the potential storylines that could come out of it, especially if Melbourne City find themselves in a knockout final that goes to penalties.
Well, exactly right. We know the quality of Barbara, and to have that kind of signing, this is the power of the City Football Group. They can bring players in of her prestige. They've got the funding and resources to do so, and that's a huge, huge signing for the City team.
Let's chat Mariners Adelaide now, Gigi, because you called this game hot conditions, which had an impact definitely on the pace of the game. But the Central Coast Mariners continue to be very hard to break down and continue to solidify, slowly but surely, that spot they've got in the top 6.
Yeah, they find a way. But you're right, it was really heavy conditions up in Gosford, 30 degrees. The first 45 minutes, to be fair, were pretty scrappy. Quality was lacking a little bit, particularly the finishing touches just really weren't there. And it took until a little bit of a break, maybe a freshen up. Kaya Simon took a free kick, it took a bit of a ricochet, and it was a scrappy goal, but nonetheless a debut goal for Tiana Karambassis, which was a really, really special moment. And this too, a set piece, so this is a training ground move. And this finish for Murgamal, you'd have to suggest a little poor decision-making by Annie Grove in goal to come out, but it was a really, really well-taken finish by Urgamal for her 6th of the season.
I found it so interesting that Em Husband, in a feature article on the A-League's website during the week, spoke about her sort of self-doubts about herself as a coach, about learning to believe, particularly when it came to putting a squad together from scratch. Tiana Karambassis, you know, Queenslander, who's moved to Gosford for her first crack at the A-League as a teenager, has been thrown in the deep end due to Taryn King tearing an ACL and going out for the season. Yet this is one of the great achievements of Em Husband this season, that she has seamlessly put in a first-season player next to Ash Irwin, another first-season player, and they have a defence that looks like it's going to take them into the top 6.
Oh, it's funny you mention Ash Irwin as well, because I spoke about her at the top of the game, that she has played the most number of minutes for Central Coast across the whole team. So that's beyond any other experienced player in the team. She's obviously one of the first names on the team sheet. And for Karambassis to come in alongside her and for them to continue to perform and defend in the way they do, well, Em Husband was Coach of the Month in January for a reason, and I think we're seeing that.
We've been in Gosford. Let's head to Maitland, because Jets were there once again. And you know I love a Mato mention at every opportunity, Grace Gill, to take on Perth Glory. Teo, for the Jets, they will be ruining their inability to put this game away. 40 shots to 6, 9 of them on target. Morgan Aquino had a night to remember, but the Jets did everything but win this game.
I mean, the Jets had 40 shots, and as we speak, their fans are doing 40 shots, because this was the total culmination of every Newcastle will rue dropping points here game that they have had this season. At least they didn't lose, but Grace, this was an absolute barrage of chances. Morgan Aquino has made some fine saves, and right at the death, the save of the season. Good for Mindy Barbieri to score a goal, raised her 100th A-League Women's game only a couple of weeks ago, and you can see what that meant to her to break through for her first goal since she was at Melbourne Victory. But this should have been the dam breaking. They had so many more chances to go on and win it.
Yeah, it should have. And I think head in the hands by Ryan Campbell, the coach, was every Jets fan across the country. 41 shots. Morgan Aquino, she's got an 83% save percentage across the league, which is immense. And rest assured that this would not have been the result if not for the performance from Aquino.
I know someone who scored 2 goals against Morgan Aquino this season. Sophie, she's, in terms of volume, has made well over 100 saves now. It's probably nearing 120. What sort of a goalkeeper is Morgan Aquino to play against?
Yeah, I actually really rate Morgan. I talk about her a lot when I think goalkeepers. She's extremely good at shot stopping. My goals against her were, one was a 1v1, so I knew I had to put it away hard and low. She's very good in the air, and yeah, she's pulled off an amazing save today.
What about Perth then, Teo? Because they haven't won yet this year. Their last win was in December after such a great start to the season where we saw Jale, Fonsomcam playing the best kind of football we've seen from them in a long time. What's shifted?
I think personnel definitely changed. Form had undulated. Sophia Sakalis and Susan Fonsomcam were starting most weeks for them. Then we saw Isabel Dalton come into midfield. Now Grace Johnston is injured and out for the year. Georgia Cassidy's away with the young Matildas. There is one maybe last throw at the stumps to get them back into the top 6. Sarah Keane, who'd been out since November, back in for 45 minutes today. The sort of player who can put a foot on the ball and control the tempo in midfield. Very underrated player, sort of an unsung quiet achiever of the Perth midfield. It's ball position on the pitch. And to give up 41 shots means the ball is living down in your defensive end. They just need players that can actually possess the ball in safe to neutral territory that isn't going to have that feeling of constantly being under pressure, because we've seen it in other games happen to Perth this season.
They managed to get something out of this game, so let's have a look at what it means for the A-League women's ladder after 18 rounds. And we have got Western United now 4 points clear on top. Melbourne City, despite all that chat we had earlier and having work to do, they still sit in second place. Sydney FC have a game in hand in third, and Melbourne Victory are roaring home. 6 wins on the trot. Their star-studded lineup finding some serious form. Sophie's Wanderers have a game in hand as well. From 6th through, Teo, who are you looking at to make a move late season?
I hate to say this with Sophie sitting next to me, but like Canberra with Heyman in the form of her sort of second prime, and also Vesna and this team with games in hand, Wanderers twice in a week. I reckon, even though they're last, I'm not putting the line through them just yet.
And I'd like to apologise to Canberra fans for that prediction, because as we get to Teo's tip, we know your penchant for putting the mockers on other teams. Why'd you have to do that to Sophie's Wanderers this weekend?
Every time I come here, you curse me, I swear.
Unbelievable.
Well, the person in that chair last week, Nat Tobin, did get her top tip right, because the Wanderers did not score in the derby. I will keep it simple. As one Sydney FC fan famously said, today is about revenge. Western United will get their revenge at long last against Sydney FC this weekend. Western United to win against Sydney FC.
And apologies to any Western United fans who are watching right now and have heard that prediction. Know how Teo's predictions tend to go. Sophie Harding, so good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me again.
Teo Pellizzeri, Grace Gill, always a pleasure.
Always, Niav.
Thank you so much for finding us at this later time slot tonight. We'll be back to our usual time slot of 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight next Sunday evening. In the meantime, though, enjoy the football. We'll see you next week.